Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle something that, well, it sounds completely ridiculous at first. We're going to treat a hilariously absurd thought experiment with absolute deadpan analytical rigor. It's a hypothetical battle that seems totally impossible on its face, right? But once we break it down using the principles of physics, probability, and complex systems, it actually turns into one of the most fascinating exercises in modern logic. So let's get into it. We are exploring the ultimate showdown, chaos theory and the incredibly weird matchup of the coughing baby versus the H-bomb.
So who actually wins in a fight between the ultimate weapon and a coughing baby? I know, on the surface, this is just a joke. It's a meme. But if we actually sit down and apply scientific theory and serious military-level analysis to this impossible question, the answer is, honestly, it's not as clear-cut as you might think. The real fascination here comes from exploring whether the absolute tiniest action, literally just a little cough from an infant, can create enough chaos to stop something that is overwhelmingly, unfathomably powerful.
All right, let's look at the tail of the tape here. If we are talking about a direct, physical, head-to-head combat scenario, it's completely one-sided, obviously. On one side, we've got the H-bomb. It's defined by thermonuclear fusion and just massive world-ending destructive force. And on the other side, we have the coughing baby. The baby has absolutely no physical strength, no intelligence advantage, zero durability, and clearly no military power. The baby absolutely cannot survive a direct explosion. So in a straight physical fight where the bomb actually detonates, the H-bomb wins instantly. The baby is hopelessly outmatched.
Section 1. Anatomy of Absolute Power. The mechanics of the ultimate weapon.
Now, to understand how the baby could possibly pull off an upset here, we really need to understand the heavy favorite. The hydrogen bomb is quite literally one of the most terrifying weapons humanity has ever created. It operates using nuclear fusion, and get this. A thermonuclear explosion creates temperatures that are actually hotter than the center of the sun. We are talking about raw destructive force that can level entire cities in a fraction of a second, followed by devastating shockwaves, lethal radiation, and massive firestorms. It is the absolute pinnacle of destructive power. But here's the catch. There is a hidden vulnerability to all that terrifying power. That massive force doesn't just happen magically on its own. It's entirely dependent on a surprisingly fragile masterpiece of extremely precise engineering. Just think about the systems required here. You've got launch authorization codes, highly sensitive electronics, microsecond timing, complex fuel systems, navigation, arming mechanisms, and incredibly intricate detonation sequences. If even one tiny, microscopic failure happens inside any of these rigid internal systems, the weapon simply cannot detonate.
Section 2. The Rules of Chaos. Shifting the Paradigm of Battle.
So this introduces us to the core mechanic of the baby's offense, and it's a big one, the butterfly effect. You've probably heard of it. It's a foundational principle of chaos theory, where a tiny, seemingly unpredictable event creates massive, unintended consequences inside a complex system. In our bizarre scenario, the baby's cough represents pure unpredictability. It's randomness entering a closed, highly rigid system. The cough itself isn't dangerous because it's physically strong. It's dangerous because of the massive chain reaction of unintended consequences it can trigger.
And that brings us to this absolutely crucial philosophical concept. Highly complex systems are inherently fragile. Think about it like a giant house of cards. The more complex a weapon or a system becomes, the more moving parts it has, right? And therefore, the more vulnerable it becomes to tiny, unexpected interruptions. Absolute power requires absolute precision. And the thing about precision is, it's actually incredibly easy to disrupt.
Section 3. How the baby wins. Running the simulations.
Okay, let's walk through our first simulation, focusing on micro-distractions and simple human error. Step 1, the baby coughs right near the scientist responsible for launch authorization. Step 2, that sudden little noise causes the scientist to be distracted for, let's say, less than a single second. Step 3, in that exact split second, a number on the authorization code is typed in incorrectly. And step 4, the entire launch sequence fails. The human element, the person operating the machine, has been completely compromised by a momentary break in concentration. Boom! The baby scores a definitive win. Let's look at another physical scenario. We'll call this the environmental hazard. Imagine the baby coughs while being carried through a military facility. A tiny, practically invisible droplet of condensation lands directly on some sensitive, open electronics, or maybe a critical launch key card. That tiny amount of moisture is literally all it takes to cause a short circuit or mess with the electrical connections. And suddenly, the detonation sequence fails. Or, maybe the cough just spreads as standard cold. A key engineer gets sick before a vital maintenance check, they call out for the day, and they miss a tiny internal flaw that leaves the bomb totally inactive. And this brilliantly shows how plausibility can escalate into a massive systemic chain reaction. Picture this. Step 1. A cough happens inside a highly sensitive, totally sealed environment. Step 2. Because of insanely strict protocols, personnel immediately panic, assuming it's some sort of biological contamination or infection. Step 3. Automatic emergency security lockdowns are instantly initiated by the computer. And Step 4. The weapon is completely locked down behind blast doors and rendered totally inaccessible. Ironically, the mere sound of a cough turns the facility's own high-tech security systems against the weapon itself. Then we have an entirely psychological possibility. What if the baby coughs at the exact moment a commander is preparing to give the final order? Hearing that helpless little cough causes an emotional hesitation in the operator. They are suddenly struck by the sheer, staggering absurdity and horror of destroying the world while actively listening to an innocent life. The launch gets completely canceled, not by any mechanical failure, but by a sudden shift in human conscience, all triggered by that cough. When we zoom out and look at all these scenarios, what we're really seeing is a cascade of tiny errors. Distraction, hesitation, a slight delay, the wrong timing, or failed synchronization. These tiny, seemingly insignificant interruptions stack up incredibly fast. And because the system is just so rigidly complex, the H-bomb simply cannot arm itself correctly. It trips over its own shoelaces, so to speak. Section 4. Precision versus randomness. The true nature of the battle. Let's take a step back and compare what these two combatants truly represent. The H-bomb is humanity's ultimate attempt at absolute calculated control. It is rigid, over-engineered, and totally structured. The coughing baby, on the other hand, perfectly represents the pure, unpredictable randomness of nature itself. So this isn't just a fight between a weapon and an infant anymore. This is chaos literally squaring off against precision. And so we arrive at the climax of our explainer. Can probability actually defeat power? Can an indirect victory, one that's achieved entirely through unintended consequences and sheer chaos, still be considered a real victory against overwhelming might? Well, according to the mathematical rules of complex systems, the answer is absolutely yes. Here is the definitive win condition for our underdog. The baby never overpowers the bomb directly. It doesn't even need to. Instead, the coughing baby unravels the hyper-fragile conditions required for the bomb to even exist as a threat in the first place. It defeats the rigid computer systems, the highly stressed people, the split-second timing, and the immense precision required for the H-bomb to function at all. The baby wins by simply introducing an unscripted variable into a script that demands absolute perfection. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought that really summarizes everything we've unpacked today. Absolute power still depends on fragile details. Humanity's attempt at absolute control is always vulnerable to randomness. It's an incredibly funny thought experiment on the surface, for sure, but it carries a very real, very serious lesson. It kind of makes you wonder, how many of the massive, highly complex systems that practically run our world right now are just one tiny, unpredictable cough away from completely breaking down? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the systems around you.